Week 7, and we're talking about good and bad foods. And let's just get it right out there on the table. We really need to identify what are some of the good foods and some of the bad foods. And weeks ago, I asked you to actually go through your pantry and identify some foods that could be given away. And I bet that if I went through your pantry or refrigerator, I would still find some foods that have big red flags, I call them. You'd be surprised at little things like ketchup. Do you know how much sugar and sodium is in ketchup? And it's a condiment, but we have it. Or if you look at, you probably have pasta in your pantry. And if you look at the pasta and it's made of white flour, maybe it's made of wheat flour, that's okay. But take a look at the fiber content. What's the fiber content of it? I like to get rid of things like minute rice because its nutritional value is like eating cardboard, basically. The number one bad foods are, of course, fast food. And I know that the fast food chains have done a lot to try to lighten up their menu, and they have actually done that. But you gotta, I mean, let's face it, is that why you go for fast food? No, you go for, the stuff that tastes good, like hamburgers and French fries. But you know what, if you have to eat out, go for the salad. Do it because this is a lifestyle change and this is what you want to do. So fast food, it's a recipe for disaster every time you go out. The other thing that's really, I call it on the do not fly list, are processed foods. And processed foods are anything that undergoes some degree of processing. And it can be putting it in a can, putting it in a box, putting it in the freezer. And I created a really nifty handout. If you go to my website, it's Why Fresh is Better. And this was a talk that I did recently locally, and I talked about some of those, the different things that you might be confused about as far as good food. There's organic food, there is natural food, there's fresh food, and then there's raw food as well. So what actually is good food? Well, if you're asking for my personal opinion, I'm going to tell you that the best food out there is something that's raw, vegetables. And the reason is because you pull them from the ground and you can eat them right away with no processing. Now, vegetables aren't always in season. So what do you do when something's not in season? The next best thing is actually, surprisingly, frozen vegetables or canned vegetables. Just watch the sodium, if you will, please, in those cans of vegetables and make sure that they're packed in water and nothing else. When they undergo some processing, they actually do lose some nutritional value. So be aware of that but again, frozen vegetables are better than no vegetables, especially in the middle of winter time, right? Okay. All right, so those are some good foods. The bad foods are the processed foods. There's also foods, every label that I look at, and you're going to have to start looking at labels at some point, watch for these key ingredients. High fructose corn syrup. We don't need it. It's added sugar. Sugar. Try not to buy or limit, at the very, very least, the foods that have sugar in them. All right? Avoid trans fats or hydrogenated fats at all costs. They are synthetic. They've been chemically manufactured, and we don't need to put them into our bodies. Watch other foods that might be natural or good for you, but they come at a price, and usually that's a high-calorie price or a high-fat price in content. I say nuts. Watch your avocados. Let's see what else. Watch your added fats and oils. Even though olive oil is a good fat, it still is a fat and it has a lot of calories. Watch your beef. However, grass-fed beef is high in the omegas, and omegas actually help with your brain function. So those are really good as well. So again, take a look at your pantry this week. Decide what bad foods you have. Decide what bad foods are still, after week 7, creeping into your diet here, and you can look at your weekly food log to kind of figure that out, and then find out where are still those opportunities for change. All right? If you have any questions on good versus bad foods, give me a call.